What are the origins of the ongoing conflicts in Ethiopia today? Are its roots in the economy, bad governance and corruption, or territorial disputes? Is it just tribal rivalry or religious conflict, as some try to portray it as? Or is it deeper? In this episode, we will explore how an old philosophy created by a dominant culture in Ethiopia affects the lives of 100 million people today. Using historical examples, we will explain how this outdated philosophy created confusion and division through class, religion, region, tribe, gender, and language. Our goal is to help people understand how this archaic view gradually evolved into religious dogma and became the sole basis of systemic oppression on the foundation that one group was chosen by God to rule the others. We begin our presentation with Albert Einstein's statement, "If the majority knew of the root of this evil, then the road to its cure would not be long." How did our challenges begin? The political and social fabric of the Oromo people have been impacted by the ideas that produced the dominant caste. Aristotle's dominant caste theory morphed into religious doctrine and seeped into government, nationalism, economic opportunities, politics, and culture. It produced groups who hated Black cultural values, calling it Satanism and voodoo. Classism and ethnocentrism became major forces. To accept or not to accept the narrative of the dominant caste, that is the problem. The Ethiopians are intellectually, physically, and morally inferior and lack the capacity for freedom. Aristotle. To be a master and the slave is human's natural order. Whites are endowed as superior rulers, and the Ethiopians are born to obey the whites. The Puritans were the first to accept Aristotle's human hierarchy theory. By the birth of Christ, the Romans justified their slaveholding practices using Aristotle's theory. Soon after, the new Christianity began to contribute to the confusion. Re-establishing and continuing Aristotle's idea of whiteness equaling superiority, Da Vinci was commissioned by the Catholic Church to paint Jesus' image as a man with light complexion. Being white becomes equivalent to being God. God ordained three natural hierarchies: Heavenly Master, top; Earthly Master, middle; the enslaved, bottom. St. Paul. Slaves are to obey your earthly masters, fearing the Lord. 1 Corinthians 3:22. The children of Ham are cursed with blackness by Noah, and slavery is inflicted upon them by God. Genesis. A disciple of Aristotle and Persian scholars influenced the curse of Ham into Islamic and Hebrew scriptures. As Christianity expanded throughout the world, the missionaries and the colonialists made Aristotle's theory acceptable to the Christians and the Muslims. This paradigm spread to schools and universities where Aristotle-centered curriculums were designed and taught to children. Aristotle's idea became a standard for civilization and modernism. Therefore, it became the foundation of ideas in education and in religion. The dark souls of the Ethiopians would become white when they become Christians. Cotton Mather. Cotton Mather's sermons were accepted in the British colonies and in Europe as the scientific foundation of revolution and enlightenment. In 1640, Harvard and Cambridge universities fashioned their curriculums around Aristotle's bigoted ideologies. William and Mary, Yale, the University of Pennsylvania, Princeton, Columbia, Brown, Rutgers, and Dartmouth regarded Aristotle's theory as universal truths worthy of memorization and unworthy of critique. Meanwhile, this concept of the caste system continued to slowly take a religious form. The said chosen people started to assume their role as the top of the hierarchy in their social structure. Researchers in America and Europe used Black people's skin color, hair texture, behavior, and cultural values as evidence for Black people's inferiority. Libraries everywhere hailed Aristotle's philosophy. Blacks possess attributes that are quite similar to those of dumb animals. Black people have the capacity for physical and cultural assimilation if they are placed in the proper European cultural environment. Keldon. It is to the advantage of the Blacks to become assimilated into white culture and acquire the traits of white culture. Gunnar Myrtle. Because of its appealing nature, religion evolved and became the political tool of those who were seeking higher office positions and power. Joining the dominant caste system provides entitlements, but requires the disregarding of the subcaste members' plight. Black people are biologically distinct and inferior to white people, and their ugly skin color is stamped on the beautiful white canvas. This ugly black stamp can be erased, and inferior blacks' behavior can be developed under a proper environment of Christianity. Jefferson Davis. Blacks are people who live like a beast. They know no God, no law, no religion, and no commonwealth. Leo Africanus. Light is white, and it is a standard to life, and all the other colors are positioned in relation to their distance from whiteness. Isaac Newton. These social theories, religious dogmas, and traditions reached the African continent via missionaries and colonialist church appointees.
Down from the Middle East, you are not native African.
No, not at all.
Ethiopian.
As a matter of fact, we don't have the Negro blood at all. And we migrated from the Semitic type of the Saudi Arabia and Yemen and the countries just away from the Red Sea. And the origin could be said that some people drafted and came to the northern part of Ethiopia. And then they migrated inwards. And time went on, they stayed and then the Hamitic races from the bordering from the south and from Sudan and things like that from the countries.
But if you, excuse me for interrupting, but if you don't have Negro blood, then this is news to me. The Ethiopians, I would think, wouldn't have any particular feeling about race relations in other parts of Africa.
We don't at all feel any relationship. It's none of our concern. I mean, we just don't care about it. As we don't have the Negro blood, we shouldn't have to worry ourselves. I mean, the color you might, the color of my face is just dark because it's due to the exposure of the sun. And my country is a mountainous country. It's 800 feet above sea level. And it's more or less nearer to the sun than is the other countries that lay near the equator.
Yoma?
Yeah.
You're not white?
And not black?
Not black. What
Yeah.
are you?
It's just in between.
Yoma, and I would like to know, are you, for instance, very much interested in the South African race policy? Or do you stand more or less objective towards that?
Not at all. We wish you would do things fairly. I mean, you don't treat the native South Africans as you do right now. But as a matter of fact, we don't care. We just listen to your policies and things that go on in South Africa. But I'd like to ask you one question. Would it become more? Would it be? Would you think it would be a little?
You mean? Wait, just before.
Would the matter be worse or better? I mean, within these few years, or how? What is the stand right now? This South African problem.
Could I just ask you another question before I answer yours?
Yeah.
is there any discrimination, for instance, between the separate tribes in your country? How do you, for instance?
I'm very happy you brought that point. As a matter of fact, the Amhara tribes consider ourselves superior to the other tribes, to the adjacent tribes that live in the same community. And we just consider them inferior and consider ourselves superior. And that could be something of segregation, but it's not actually in the sense that you take it and the Americans in Little Rock take it. I mean, it's just very unprominent.
I mean, do you mean that you think that the other tribes are perhaps a little too primitive, for instance?
Not a matter of primitiveness or so. It's just a matter of ignorance, I shall say.
Oh.
I mean, the Amhara tribes are more cute and clever. And that's why, they're just...
That's your tribe?
Yeah, that's my tribe.
That's very modest, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have whites in Ethiopia? White people?
Foreigners?
White people, yes.
Yeah, lots of them. We have the Americans, as a matter of fact. They're working in different departments. And I'd like to say one point on that. They seem to be more cooperative in... they looked as though they are cooperative in my country. And I thought it was because they were in a foreign country that they should cooperate. But no, I proved it right here. They have assemblies in communities and things like that. I mean, they are more cooperative than I actually saw it in my country.
Yoma, just to get back to another point, do you then think, for instance, it's fair that if there is discrimination in Ethiopia, even between, well, the same race and the same nation?
Not the same race, of course, the same nation.
The same nation.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think then it's fair to judge South Africans as white towards black? If you don't, for instance, acknowledge the less good Ethiopians,
we do acknowledge them. I don't mean we don't actually consider our discrimination, what you call it, is not as prominent and worldwide known as it's in South Africa. That's it.
Well, what are we actually saying here? That there is all kinds of discrimination, and discrimination is all right as long as it isn't too prominent, or as long as it isn't between black and white? What are we saying here anyway?
No, it's like this. She said, do you think the discriminations in your country is good, or the segregation?
Excuse me, let's hear from Susie on this, because Brazil's got a special point of view, I'm sure.
No, what they wanted to say is that he was telling her that she has discrimination. She's telling him
segregation, not discrimination.
I'm sorry, segregation. And she's telling him that he has a kind of segregation too. And he won't admit it.
I just told you first of all. How did you happen to know it?
You consider your segregation different.
Yeah.
Yes, because you're all different.
Accepting the narrative of the dominant caste offers privileges. This man is a good example of this. He accepted the norm of the Orthodox Church and chose, like many others, to assimilate to this new ideology, draping the Ethiopian flag over him. This flag became a symbol for assenting with the caste system and oppressing the lower castes. By doing this, he moved up the social hierarchy, was promoted to a general, and acclaimed by the assimilated. The Orthodox Church belief values were anchored on these principles. Its clergies manipulated millions over the years, muffling native cultures and worldviews. This process pitted the assimilated and the non-assimilated against one another. The assimilated wanted to destroy native cultures, believing they were fighting the evil, and legalize their criminal activities. No matter the condition of their lives, the Amharas still believe that they possess the blood, the genes, and the patrimony of superiority. They have found it comforting to demean others as subordinate castes, a mentality that, despite all its problems, still provides them some solace. The capitalists who seek to increase profit supplied guns to the assimilated groups and defended their discriminatory policies out of economic self-interest. Professionals, theologians, artists, scholars, and journalists defended these policies. Rules and regulations were developed based on these ideological foundations. The uneducated consumed these centuries-old illiberal ideas, unaware of the consequences, and failed to recognize their true identity and culture. The Oromo lands were renamed into Zion, Nazareth, Shawa. Oromuma was curtailed. With their identity and pride revised, culture, politics, and economy morphed into confusion throughout time. The Ethiopianist ideals started during the Menelik era and was reinforced by religious propaganda, skillfully destroying the Oromo people's linguistic and cultural values. Ethiopianism assaulted Oromo names in schools, at colleges, and at religious establishments. Non-native cultures were taught that native civilizations were prohibited. Soon, Oromo ancestral roots were despised. The Bible and Quran became a weapon for assimilationists who had spent centuries demeaning at Oromuma and the programs Oromuma incorporates. Today, the ruling Amhara group fears multiculturalism because native cultures do not consider the European, Middle Eastern values as official standards. Native Oromo cultural perspectives and values are now foreign concepts to Oromo youth and cannot be taught without resistance. This is why even the TPLF only embraced diversity and multiculturalism in name. In practice, they are reinforcing Amhara cultural standards. This maintenance of the status quo, still quietly extended by the assimilationists, perpetuates the rigid European, Middle Eastern academic and religious ideologies. The greatest threat to the caste system would be the achievement of the oppressed class. Lower caste achievement undermines the core assumptions upon which a caste system is constructed. The achievement of the marginalized people puts things out of order and triggers fear and violent backlash. In 1918, World War I, Black Americans were sent to fight alongside the French. After treating Black Americans as equals, the American military commander told the French to treat the Black soldiers as inferior, lest they should become more aware of the unjust treatment they were receiving back in America. During the most vicious war in human history, the French had to find a way to degrade and demean Black American soldiers. White Americans had to maintain the oppression even outside their country so that the Black Americans would not realize their oppression is not inherent and that they are worthy of equality. Translating the 1918 American caste system into the ongoing Amhara mindset of 2021. The Amhara group maintains an oppression on the Oromo community in order to keep the caste system in place, so they will not realize the power in their culture and identity as a major ethnic group. They denied the Oromo youth contribution to the removal of Tigray rule. The Amhara rule, led by Abiy Ahmed, refused to recognize Afan Oromo as a part of the empire civilization. They rejected OPDO's contribution to the Tigray war effort, and they wished to eliminate each regional state, such as Oromia. They used the Oromo and the Tigrayans as scapegoats for all their guilt and misdeeds. They transfer their criminal deeds onto Oromuma and try to banish everything Oromo. They feel no remorse or sadness when the lower caste members suffer, believing that suffering is the duty of the lower caste. Their political organizations and media platforms scapegoat those who challenge the caste system. Those who see themselves as a part of the dominant caste wish to maintain the illusion of their primacy. They must invest in devaluing the lower caste and their belief in the inferiority of others to keep their own presumed superiority intact. The survival of the top caste and social hierarchy depends on its members considering its importance greater than their individual lives. Thus, when under threat, they are willing to sacrifice themselves for their ideals and the survival of the group from which they draw their self-esteem. Little parcels of truth are inserted, but the whole story is formed around falsehood and fabrication. The political actions based on narcissistic self-glorification, devoid of objectivity, led the leaders of Empire Ethiopia to the disastrous destination we've witnessed so far. The Amharas who live with the inflated image of themselves and believe they are superior to other ethnic groups feel so important despite lacking a culture of their own. The solution for these problems lie on the rest assuming personal responsibility. If we ignore our socioeconomic and cultural plight and become a part of the assimilated, our challenges will live with us for many years to come. We have to rediscover our culture, history, and fight for our rights. Let's take pride in who we are.